Steven Stanko cultivated an image of success and charm. He presented himself as a man of means, someone with wealth and influence. This persona was a carefully constructed facade. In reality, Stanko was a career con artist. His history was marked by deceit and a disturbing pattern of violence. He used his appearance and smooth talking to manipulate others. Standing tall at 6 feet 3 inches, Stanko was described as striking. He leveraged this presence to project an air of importance. He would often brag about being rich, buying drinks freely, and actively pursuing women. While some were taken in by his act, others recognized him for what he was. They saw through the pretense to the small-time con artist beneath. His schemes were often short-lived and ultimately unsustainable. Forensic psychologists later analyzed Stanko's behavior. They identified a profound need for grandiosity. Their assessment concluded he exhibited traits consistent with a psychopath. This psychological profile painted a picture of a man driven by self-importance. It highlighted a lack of empathy and a propensity for manipulation. These characteristics would ultimately lead to horrific consequences. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. The carefully maintained facade of Steven Stanko shattered on April 8, 2005. On this day, his hidden violence erupted into a brutal crime spree. He committed acts of rape and double murder. His victims included his girlfriend and her close friend. The violence began at the girlfriend's home. He attacked her 15-year-old daughter. The attack on the daughter was horrific. Stanko subjected her to sexual assault. This was just the beginning of the terror he inflicted. He then turned on the daughter's mother, his girlfriend. He strangled her to death. This unspeakable act occurred in front of her teenage daughter. After the murder at the home, Stanko fled. He drove to the residence of another individual. This was the home of Henry Lee Turner. Henry Lee Turner was a 74-year-old retired Air Force veteran. He was also a friend of Stanko's murdered girlfriend. Stanko's motive for targeting him remains tied to the events of that day. Upon arriving at Turner's home, Stanko committed another murder. He fatally shot Henry Lee Turner. This second killing expanded the scope of his rampage. Following the murder of Mr. Turner, Stanko stole his truck. He used the stolen vehicle to make his escape. This act initiated a widespread manhunt. The brutal crimes committed by Steven Stanko triggered an immediate and extensive search. Law enforcement agencies across multiple states joined the effort. A nationwide manhunt was underway to apprehend the dangerous fugitive. Authorities tracked Stanko for 4 days. Their investigation led them across state lines. The search culminated in Georgia. Stanko was located and captured in Augusta, Georgia. His capture brought an end to the intense search. He was taken into custody without further incident. At the time of his arrest, Stanko was reportedly attempting to charm another woman. He was using a false identity. He introduced himself as Stephen Christopher. His behavior upon capture mirrored his established pattern of deceit. Even while on the run for murder, he was seeking new victims for his manipulation. This underscored the depth of his pathological behavior. Investigation into Stanko's background revealed a long history of criminal activity. His past was marked by a clear pattern of deceit and violence. This was not his first encounter with the law for serious offenses. He had previously served a significant prison sentence. This was for a conviction of kidnapping. He spent over 8 years incarcerated for this crime. His criminal record also included a conviction for attempted murder. This earlier violent act occurred in 1996. The victim was another girlfriend, highlighting a disturbing pattern in his relationships. Following his capture, Steven Stanko was brought to justice in South Carolina. He was tried for the murders and other crimes. The legal process moved towards a potential death sentence. Stanko was ultimately sentenced to death. He is set to be executed by the state of South Carolina. This sentence followed a thorough legal review. Throughout the legal proceedings and subsequent appeals, Stanko's defense attorneys argued for his life. They presented various arguments aimed at mitigating his culpability or challenging the sentence. Their efforts sought to prevent his execution. One key argument raised by the defense cited potential brain damage. They suggested this could be a mitigating factor in his behavior. This line of defense aimed to explain his violent actions as potentially influenced by neurological issues. The defense also highlighted Stanko's conduct while incarcerated. They cited his reported efforts at repentance. They also pointed to his alleged attempts to help other inmates in prison. Another significant argument from the defense challenged the method of execution itself. They claimed that South Carolina's execution methods constituted cruel and unusual punishment. This argument invoked constitutional protections against such practices. Despite the defense's arguments, the courts consistently rejected them. Appeals based on brain damage, repentance, and execution methods were unsuccessful. The legal system upheld the conviction and the death sentence. The judicial process determined that the mitigating factors presented were insufficient. They did not outweigh the gravity of his crimes. The courts found no constitutional infirmity in the state's execution protocols as applied to his case. The legal path for Steven Stanko reached its conclusion. The final rulings affirmed the death penalty. His execution date was set after years of appeals. The lives taken by Steven Stanko were those of kind and trusting individuals. They were tragically caught in his web of lies and violence. Their deaths left an indelible mark on their families and communities. Stanko's girlfriend, whose life was brutally ended in her own home, was a mother. Her murder occurred in the most horrific circumstances imaginable. Her daughter witnessed the final moments of her life. The girlfriend's daughter, a 15-year-old at the time, survived the attack. She endured a terrifying ordeal of sexual assault and witnessed her mother's murder. Her testimony was crucial in the case against Stanko. Her courage in recounting the events was profound. She provided a first-hand account of Stanko's brutality. Her survival stands as a testament to her strength. Henry Lee Turner was the second victim of Stanko's rampage. He was a respected member of his community. As a retired Air Force veteran, he had served his country. Mr. Turner's daughter remembered her father fondly. She described him as a welcoming and generous man. His life was senselessly taken in his own home. The loss of Henry Lee Turner devastated his family and friends. His murder added another layer of tragedy to Stanko's crime spree. The impact of his death resonated deeply. Steven Stanko's execution marks the end of a long and complex legal process. It brings a finality to his case within the criminal justice system. The state's sentence is carried out. However, the execution cannot undo the pain and loss inflicted. It cannot bring back the lives of his victims. The suffering endured by their families and loved ones continues. The memory of the victims remains. Their stories are a somber reminder of the consequences of unchecked violence and deception. The case serves as a stark example of the devastating impact of such crimes. The legal proceedings provided a forum for justice. They held Stanko accountable for his actions. The outcome reflects the state's response to its heinous crimes. For the victims' families, the execution may represent a form of closure. Yet, the void left by their loved ones can never be filled. The trauma of April 8, 2005 persists. The case of Steven Stanko highlights the critical need for vigilance. It underscores the dangers posed by individuals who mask violent tendencies behind a facade of normalcy. It is a case studied in criminal justice for its brutality and the profile of the offender. It serves as a reminder of the fragility of life. It also shows the resilience of those who survive and seek justice. The events of that day and their aftermath are etched into the history of South Carolina crime. The legal battle over Stanko's life raised important questions. These included debates about mental state, repentance, and the nature of punishment. These are ongoing discussions within the legal and ethical spheres. Ultimately, the courts upheld the state's right to carry out the sentence. Steven Stanko faced the consequences determined by the law. His path from conman to convicted killer ended with his execution. The focus remains on the victims and their enduring legacy. Their lives were valuable and were taken unjustly. The legal process sought to provide accountability for their deaths. The case is a somber chapter in the state's history. It serves as a cautionary tale about the potential for extreme violence hidden beneath a deceptive surface. The memory of the victims calls for continued advocacy and awareness.